Good morning, Wichita, and good morning to all of you. Thank you for joining us at City Hall. I call this meeting to order. With us this morning to provide the invocation is Pastor Philip Moore of Chapel Hill United Methodist Church. Following the invocation, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance. May I please ask everyone to stand.
Good morning, and I want to thank the mayor and the city council for this opportunity. Let's pray. Gracious and eternal God in heaven, we come before you with thankful hearts for the gift of this day and the opportunity to serve the people of Wichita. We ask your blessings upon this council, the mayor, and all who are gathered here. Grant wisdom, clarity, and unity as decisions are made that will shape the future of our city. Lord, bless Wichita, its families, neighborhoods, schools, and businesses. Protect those who serve in public safety, strengthen those who work for the good of our community, and encourage every citizen to seek peace and justice. Guide this meeting with fairness and integrity. May every discussion be marked by respect, every decision rooted in wisdom, and every action taken for the common good. We ask these things in your holy name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, Pastor Moore. Madam Clerk, happy birthday. Can you please call the first item?
Approve the minutes of the regular meeting, September 2nd, 2025.
Council members, any edits to those minutes? I see none. I move to approve the minutes for the regular meeting of September 2nd, 2025.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Who's missing? Bless you. Maggie? Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Awards and proclamations. Today's proclamations are Recovery Month, Wichita Recovery Coalition, Opioid Abuse and National Suicide Prevention Mental Health Awareness Month, and National Literacy Month.
May I please ask Councilmember Ballard to join me and ask Wichita Recovery Coalition to please come forward at this time as well. Good morning to all. The proclamation reads, the city of Wichita, Kansas, founded in 1870, whereas behavioral health is essential to overall health and well-being, and recovery from mental health and substance use challenges is possible for every individual. Whereas National Recovery Month, now in its 36th year, is a national observance held every September to celebrate recovery, promote evidence-based practices, and honor the dedication of service providers, peer leaders, and community partners. Whereas millions of Americans and thousands of residents in Wichita and Sedgwick County are living in recovery today, demonstrating that treatment, peer support, and community connection are effective and life-changing. Whereas the Wichita Recovery Coalition is a grassroots network uniting treatment providers, peer-led organizations, harm reduction advocates, public health partners, faith communities, and local leaders to build a healthier, safer, and more resilient Wichita. Now therefore be it resolved that the Wichita City Council does hereby proclaim September 2025 as Recovery Month.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for recognizing September as Recovery Month in Wichita. Recovery looks different for everyone. Many people are navigating multiple challenges all at once, healing from substance use, mental health struggles, and other trauma. And it affects everyone, children, families, neighbors, and even our local businesses. So when someone finds support, the whole community benefits. In Wichita, the need is urgent. Sedgwick County overdose deaths have doubled over the last decade, and these aren't just statistics. They represent lives, families, and futures. That's why the Wichita Recovery Coalition is so important. This grassroots network unites organizations, service providers, and advocates to make Wichita a recovery-ready city, a place where support is accessible, stigma is replaced with compassion, and no one has to face these challenges alone. Thank you for shining a light on recovery and helping to build a stronger, healthier Wichita. Thank you.
Thank you again. I also had the opportunity to meet Salvation Army last week regarding their recovery program, and there are still beds available. And so I just wanted to make sure that people in our community knew that that resource is available to anyone who needs that help. Congratulations to the coalition. May I please ask Councilmember Hoheisel to come forward at this time? And all those who are in support of the Opioid Abuse and National Suicide Prevention Mental Health Awareness Month. The proclamation reads, "The City of Wichita, Kansas, founded in 1870, whereas the Associated General Contractors, AGC of Kansas, the Chamber of Commerce for the Kansas construction industry, representing 300 Kansas commercial, industrial, and utility construction contractors and their 20,000 employees. Whereas AGC of Kansas is proud to partner with the public and private sectors, including the Kansas construction industry, U.S. Department of Labor, OSHA, and the Kansas Mental Health Association to recognize the month of September as Opioid Abuse and National Suicide Prevention Mental Health Awareness Month. Whereas AGC of Kansas and its industry partners created the Kansas Construction Safety Network to provide opioid abuse and mental health resources and to bring attention to the critical challenges associated with drug abuse and mental health in our community. Whereas AGC of Kansas has worked with its 300 Kansas construction firms to hold a construction stand-up on their construction job sites in Wichita and around Kansas to recognize Drug Abuse and Mental Health Month. Now therefore be it resolved that the Wichita City Council does hereby proclaim September 2025 as Opioid Abuse and National Suicide Prevention Mental Health Awareness Month.
Thank you. And what a great honor to be able to share this platform with the coalition today. It speaks a big testament of what our city is going through and what we need to do collectively to not only recover but to prevent. So on behalf of the Associated General Contractors of Kansas, which is recognized as the Chamber of Commerce for the construction industry, representing 300 construction companies and their 20,000 employees, our safety committee is honored to join the city of Wichita and Mayor Lily Wu in recognizing September as Mental Health Awareness Month. If I could, I would like to introduce our great team of industry safety professionals that have joined us on this. A couple of years ago, the AGC of Kansas Safety Committee worked in partnership with the U.S. Department of Labor, OSHA, and the Mental Health Association to creating the Kansas Construction Safety Network that has a website that offers a wide range of resources of both the construction industry and the community as a whole to utilize in addressing the many challenges associated with mental health, drug abuse, and suicide prevention. We are proud of this partnership and proud of the construction industry's investment of millions of dollars and millions of man-hours to assure that employees return home safely at the end of each workday. Because of this great safety partnership in Kansas, the construction industry leads the way on job site safety practices. Thank you again, Mayor Wu and the City Council for this great leadership to the citizens of Wichita. Thank you.
Is anyone from Storytime Village present at this moment? If not, we will delay doing this proclamation. Is that proper? Okay. We will read this proclamation at our next city council meeting on Tuesday of next week. Thank you. We do have a representative from Storytime Village, Dr. Priska Barnes. Can you please come forward at this time? Good morning. The proclamation reads, "The city of Wichita, Kansas, founded in 1870, whereas literacy is essential for personal, social, and economic well-being of individuals, families, and communities. Whereas Storytime Village has demonstrated a commitment to promoting literacy in our community by providing access to books, resources, hosting events, and building little free libraries to inspire a lifelong love of reading and learning. Whereas Storytime Village recognizes the importance of early literacy in laying the foundation for future academic success and is dedicated to empowering young leaders with the tools needed to thrive in school and beyond. Whereas the City of Wichita acknowledges the efforts of organizations like Storytime Village, as well as educators, volunteers, and community partners in working towards a future where every resident has the ability to read, write, and fully participate in our society. Now therefore be it resolved that the Wichita City Council does hereby proclaim September 2025 as National Literacy Month."
Good morning, and thank you, Mayor Lily Wu. Storytime Village, our mission is to inspire a lifelong love of reading for underserved Kansas children from birth to age 8. And we've been doing this work since 2009. So we're in our 16th, sweet 16th anniversary, celebrating literacy, empowering young people and families. We are embarking upon a major endeavor, building a literacy center in the Northeast area, providing wraparound services for children and families. And we're so grateful each year to celebrate National Literacy Month, and grateful for this proclamation. So thank you for this opportunity, and we look forward to continuing to inspire a lifelong love of reading.
Madam Clerk, can you please call the next item?
Public agenda. The public agenda allows for 5 minutes, for up to 5 speakers to each have 5 minutes to address the council. No action will be taken relative to items on the public agenda other than referral to the city manager for information as necessary. Speakers will please state their name and address for the record. A time clock will display the speaker's remaining time to speak. Order and rules of decorum will be observed. The first speaker is Samantha Anaya Rader, Camp Sam.
Buenos dias, good morning, grand rising. Citizens, civil servants, please look alive while Miss Sunshine herself, 2-time Kansas State Fair Sunflower Ribbon winner, 4-time grand champion of Signage County Market Wheat Show. Lady Samantha Anaya of 2030 South Lulu, District 3, presents Camp Sam. Can you picture abundance meeting private interests? Soon accoladed, applauded, may we be. Camp Sam's sights are set on transforming more than 650 acres of prime parks into the personal playground for Kansas ostentiously charitable honchos. My vision is an invite-only, quasi-exclusive camp where pay-to-play is key, a place where one may realize our little house on the prairie. Come on, come all, come as you are, build it and they will come. I plan to purchase the parks at a sweetheart rate. Won't you pretty please sell me Northwest Sedgwick County Park for $1 an acre? And I plan to, count them out for you, but this time I'm counting $1 an acre. You've done it before. I promise to care for it, not sell it for more. This camp will be grand. I'll start by breaking ground, planting a stand of sunflowers for the great late Luke. Next, I'll fashion a grand guild defense to keep my heritage herd, bison, and assorted creatures. Camp Sam of a Center for Health and Wealth, I call on your benefactors to invest in me too. City, I need a small loan of $1 million in exchange for your trust and $1 donation. I owe you a favor. Try your luck, Camp Sam, for you. And I originally intended to do a whole campy thing. It's kind of an art thing, and so it's just an inspired writing, and thank you for allowing me to speak. But I intend to have pancakes in the park at noon next Tuesday in Linwood Park. And I'll personally invite all of you there. And I hope to see you next Tuesday at noon. And I also will have a raffle for some Samature prizes to win a 3-month print subscription to Sam Press, my little newsletter I want to write, and my award-winning spaghetti squash. I got a ribbon at the Cheney Fair. I have 2 that I can give, and I'd like to invite Mr. Hohaiso, Parks and Rec, City Manager Layton, a few friends of mine, art friends, music friends as well. Mr. Arthur Stokes, I'd like him to be there. I'd like to invite a family friend named Roberto He is a counselor, so others may benefit from seeing him, and he's good people. I'd like to invite Mayor Whipple, Mayor Wu. I'd like to invite my DJ friend. Her name is Sadie. I have another friend named Kaya. Kaya Papaya is an amazing singer, and I'd love her to perform there. I have a saxophone friend named Sage. My lab partner of ecology, Jacob Stewart, and a few others. So I hope to see you again next Tuesday for Pancakes in the Park at Linwood Park. And thank you for allowing me to camp it up. And it's been fun. So thank you, and I hope to be a community partner with y'all. I was the wellness coordinator of the health department. Before I was laid off there, I wrote the wellness operational plan, and I believe that we can all work together it doesn't have to be called Camp Sam, but just health and wealth, a wellness center, and I think we can all work together with it. So I intended to sing Home on the Range for y'all, but my voice is failing me. I was exposed to black mold at Johnson Controls, and I need help with getting my lungs back. So, Home on the Range. So, thank you.
Thank you, Samantha. Councilmember Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mayor. Did you say the pancakes was Tuesday or Saturday?
Saturday can be the District 3 breakfast,
We're not having one this month. We have one next month.
Okay. Let's see, Saturday. I could do Saturday.
Okay, I just Tuesday's fine. I just wanted some clarification.
More people can come. Saturday at noon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hoheisel. And just a quick note, Sedgwick County owns Sedgwick County Park. Madam Clerk, can you please call the next individual?
Mayor, we don't have any more individuals signed up this morning.
Thank you. Are there any individuals who would like to address the council? I see none. We'll bring it back to the bench. Madam Clerk, can you please call the next item?
Consent agenda items 1 through 16.
Council members, any items to be pulled? I see none. I will move to approve consent agenda items 1 through 16.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Board of Bids and Contracts dated September 8th, 2025.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council, Josh Lauber, Department of Finance. The Board of Bids and Contracts convened yesterday, September 8th, 2025, for the following items. For engineering, we have Swaney Farm Addition Phase 1 rebid for Noack Construction Company Incorporated for the aggregate bid total of $3,768,216.70. We have the Stormwater Sewer number 800, Old Town Slotted Trench Drains, reject all bids. We have the water main line replacement for St. Paul and Newell Streets for Wildcat Construction Company Incorporated for $533,249. We have the 2025 Outsourced Paving Preservation Program CIP Localized Street Repair for PSE Contractors LLC for $734,490. We have the skylight replacement for Westlink Library for Icon Structures Incorporated for $74,200. We have the installation of outdoor antennas for 21 fire stations for Gateway Wireless and Network Services for $93,132.09. We have the orthophosphate bulk delivery for Shannon Chemical Corporation for an estimated annual usage of $398,520 annually. We have the $58,000 gross vehicle weight restriction dump trucks for Omaha Truck Center, doing business as Truck Center Companies, for an aggregate bid total of $377,138. We have the roof and gutter replacement at 25 residential sites for AR Commercial Roofing LLC for an aggregate bid of $249,000. And we have the licensed track software annual renewal change order for Progressive Solutions Incorporated for $7,500 per year, requesting authorization to add. And we have the Wichita Fire Department radios and equipment for Motorola Solutions Incorporated for $909,226. This is how to become a vendor with the city. This is our purchasing calendar of events that the city is hosting or participating in with small business resource partners. This is our open public opportunities out on the street today. And I'd be happy to try to answer any of your questions, and I recommend your approval.
I have a couple of questions. Can we go back to number 6?
Sure.
Can you talk about this?
Sure. The bid exceeded the engineer's estimate, requiring us to change the material deviation of the scope, so we can hopefully resolicit the project and then get bids within the engineer's estimate.
And then 9.
Okay.
I've attended several grand reopenings of libraries, and I'm very appreciative. This was in Councilmember Glasscock's district, Westlink Library, and all these improvements are great. Had the opportunity to see Councilmember Tuttle's, where she holds her district advisory board meetings at Rockwell. Can you address, or can someone address, since we've made all these investments, can we make sure that the structures are structurally sound? This should have been item number 1 prior to renovating inside. I think this was a leak, is that correct? Oh, sorry, I apologize. I'm now thinking about yours, but it's still the same question. How can we make sure that we first focus on the structural buildings before I guess we've already done it though, which is the insides of these libraries?
Thank you, Mayor and Council Members Gary Jansen, Public Works and Utilities. There was a kind of a special set of circumstances related to this issue that you point well received. I get it. You're right. And we certainly, as we go through these projects, we're trying to evaluate as many issues as we can. The focus here was on a lot of what happens with the interior use and the space. There were some circumstances that led to this not being a part of the project, but I think it gives us the opportunity to reevaluate how we approach these in the future. So I appreciate the comment, and we do want to be as thorough as we can up front with these projects.
Do you have any updates regarding Alfred then?
I can get you, I don't have specific updates with me. We do have funding for roof replacement, additional window replacement, and then we're also looking ahead at funding that's in the CIP for some of the facade removal and replacement to hopefully address the issues we're having with the leaks. Same thing there, when those repairs were originally made, some of what has happened since that point in time we were not aware of. And it had nothing to do with the repairs that were already made, but we do have funding program to be able to move forward. So I can get you specifics on that because we've got multiple things getting ready to happen there too.
Thank you, Gary. And I know that we have 7 libraries, and a majority of them had major improvements. So I just want to make sure that people understand that we are making those major investments, not just inside, but also structurally, so that it is a sound building. Thank you, Gary. Councilmember Ballard.
Thank you, Mayor. Josh, can you go back to, I think it's 6 maybe?
Certainly.
This is probably a question for Gary. Sorry, Gary. Is this the drains in Old Town, like in the center that I'm always harassing you about?
Yes, the drains that are at the center of the street, the ones that we've been talking about, we've had the temporary plates on them. Unique situation when these were designed years ago. They lasted. They served us well, but to try to get in and make repairs has been more challenging than we thought. So we're trying to take a different approach to make sure these last longer next time. Being fairly unique and some of the materials being used resulted in a higher cost than we expected. So we're going to take one more look and maybe find a different way to approach this. But hopefully we can get back to bidding soon and get the permanent repairs done. I don't know what that timeline looks like just yet, but I'll let you know as soon as we know.
Okay, thank you.
And then lastly, Josh, it's slides 10 and 15, so maybe it's a Chief Snow question.
Okay.
93,000, and then I think, what was 15? 909. So major investments into the fire departments. Can Chief Snow maybe just address the needs for this and how this will help with safety for our firefighters as well?
Sure. I see Chief Snow coming now.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council members, Fire Chief Tammy Snow. Yes, both of these are part of a larger package for our station alerting. It will upgrade our station alerting and allow us to receive and transmit signals. It's all part of a big package. These are two components of it. The current station alerting, it's currently out for, we have RFPs, and we are currently interviewing the potential bid packages currently. Some of the specifications on it are to change the way we currently alert our firefighters. Currently, there's a loud blast whenever an emergency call comes in, waking the entire station or notifying the entire station. In the current vendors that we're interviewing at this particular time, we've changed that to cardiac alerting, which means it's more heart-friendly. If a firefighter is asleep at night, the tones ramp up. It goes from very soft to loud. The packages also have the amenity or the luxury or another feature of being able to, if we have multiple units in a station, we can alert just those that are assigned to that particular station, so allowing the rest of the members to continue to sleep. So yes, it's more health-friendly and moving forward. And these are, like I said, these are just two components of it.
Thank you, Chief. So nearly $1 million, and it is going to help with really the safety and health of firefighters as well as communication.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I have no further questions, and I see no further questions from the bench. I move to approve the Board of Bids and Contracts for September 8th, 2025.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Petitions for public improvements.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council members, Paul Gunzelman, Public Works and Utilities. For the record, I have one location for your consideration this morning. The signatures on the petitions represent 100% of the improvement districts, and the petitions are valid per Kansas statute. Northwest High School addition located in District 5. The project will provide sewer improvements required for an existing commercial development. And it is recommended that the City Council approve the new petition and budget, adopt a new resolution, and authorize the necessary signatures. I'll stand for questions.
Questions for staff? I see none. I move to approve the petitions for public improvements.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Ordinances relating to sections 568-218 and 505-030 of the Code of the City of Wichita relating to mapping restrictions.
Good morning, Sharon DeGraff, City Law Department. I'm here today to talk about some procedural cleanup ordinances regarding existing ordinances that we have for mapping restrictions for anti-prostitution areas and the Old Town overlay. As background, since 1995, we have had these mapping restrictions in effect for prostitution or sale of sexual relations offenses. The areas were essentially near the Broadway corridor. Those areas were based on statistics at the time that these were high-level prostitution areas. They are essentially areas from 21st Street on the north to 2nd Street on the south, Main on the west, and Washington on the east. And then the second anti-prostitution area was south of Kellogg, Waterman on the north to 47th Street south, Washington on the east, and Wichita on the west. Second set of ordinances that these amendments would include are Old Town enhanced penalties and mapping restrictions in reference to Old Town. 2014, ordinances were passed that allowed for additional penalties for person-related crimes occurring in the Old Town area. These penalties included a mandatory fine, as well as opportunities for the court to restrict individuals from returning to the Old Town area as a condition of probation. The area included in this is essentially the Old Town overlay. The proposed ordinances fix a technical change in the ordinances that would allow these mapping restrictions to be part of my office's diversions or deferred judgment agreements. It would allow the court and my office the opportunity to file additional charges if these mapping restrictions were violated as part of the diversion and deferred judgment. Diversion and deferred judgment is an opportunity for offenders to keep charges off of the record if they comply with all the terms and conditions of the agreement. We are asking that the ordinances be placed on first reading and authorize any necessary signatures, and I would stand for any questions.
Thank you, Sharon. Questions for staff, beginning with Councilmember Glasscock.
Thank you, Mayor. I know we had discussed, and Sharon, thank you for answering all my questions earlier this week, but I'll just reiterate them now so they're in the public a little bit too. Okay. The what ifs regarding this. So what if someone's driving through transit in here? What if someone's going to work? If they're going to the farmer's market, if they have a family event, what are the exceptions? Do the judge makes those exceptions as they travel through?
The judge may make exceptions. PD is only going to have contact with people, quite candidly, if there's a problem. One of the other questions that a council member asked me yesterday was how do we know about these restrictions? And there is an order that's filed with the court, copy is sent to Spider. So then when an officer would make contact with a person, they would know then that they're on that anti-prostitution or mapping restriction. So if I'm passing through Old Town, we're never going to stop you. If you're at a farmer's market and you are mapped out, that could be a violation. But if you ask the court for exceptions, the court would then determine whether or not an exception was appropriate.
And so this is less about enforcement, more about helping in prosecution.
Right.
In the future.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. Just a couple questions. So are there any time restrictions on this, or would that be something that someone have to ask a judge for exception-wise?
You mean as far as time of day or?
Yeah.
You can ask for exceptions. I mean, if I work in the area, frankly, the exceptions that we could ask for work in the area, they were using work vehicles when they were committing the crime. So those were not granted. But the period of any kind of restriction is for a period of the probation or the diversion agreement, which is generally 1 year.
Okay, but it's 24/7 restriction.
And unless there's some exception authorized by the court or the diversion agreement.
Okay. If there is a situation where maybe this is wanted, but the person resides in Old Town, how would that work?
Would be up to the court as to whether or not it was appropriate for that person to continue to reside in Old Town for that year period of time. I have never seen it applied to someone who lived in Old Town and required them to move.
Okay. That was all I have for now.
Councilmember Ballard.
Thank you, Mayor. Sharon, thank you for the presentation and for answering my questions yesterday, I guess. Can you talk a little bit about the successes of this, and is that why we are expanding it into Old Town, or did legal bring this up, or? just
Legal,
curious?
yeah, legal brought this up. We don't file a lot of violations of the mapping restrictions, and that could be that they're either successful or they're just not going to back to those areas for that period of time. It became an issue when we were wanting to have these restrictions on people who were on the diversion agreement for the period of agreement, and the court did not feel comfortable ordering those because the ordinance talked about condition of probation or conviction. So we just wanted to include language to allow that as a sentencing tool and a tool for our office to use as regarding diversion conditions.
Great, thank you so much.
Sharon, so these types of offenses, again, are, I'm looking at page 2 of the ordinance. So urinating in public, defecating in public, public nudity, these are all items that if an individual has been charged with these items, then would not be allowed to be in the area?
You have to be convicted or you have to be placed on diversion. And we are asking for a slight expansion into those to include the offenses that you just listed. Right now, they are related to the person crimes, the battery crimes, the assault crimes, but we are asking for a slight expansion of those in the Old Town area to include some of the public nudity type offenses that we are seeing.
How often are we seeing those types of offenses?
I do not have that data with me, but I could get that for you.
Has that been increasing, decreasing, or staying the same?
I'm going to look to see if Captain Moses has any data or idea.
I don't have specific data on those specific incidents, but obviously crime in Old Town or downtown is of high priority to everyone in our community. It's something we hear a lot about. Certainly the perception of crime in the Old Town and downtown area is something we hear a lot about. So it is something that we track, just not these specific crimes, but I can certainly have those polled and get those to you at a later date if you'd like.
You don't need to. I don't want to add one more layer of information. This is more the question that I wanted to know, which is how often has this been an issue in particular, that this, obviously law believed that this was an issue to bring it to an ordinance change, but how often has this really been an issue in the Old Town area?
Well, I'll let Sharon talk about the issue with the diversion versus probation, but what I can touch on is we all saw incidents in the last 6 months that draw extreme public attention to the Old Town area. And we certainly feel that any additional restriction we can place to help people feel safe in that area is important. I'm speaking specifically about the case where a female was battered in the Old Town area that drew a lot of public attention. So from the police department's perspective, having another tool in tool belt to try to keep problem people out of the area while they work on changing their behavior is beneficial.
I don't have anything to add other than what Captain Moses said. It's just really to give our office another tool and the police department another tool should these people come back into an area that they shouldn't be for that limited period of time.
Thank you, Sharon and Captain Moses. I see no further questions. We'll open it up for public comment. I see none. We'll bring it back to the bench. I see no council members, so I will go ahead and move to approve the proposed ordinances and authorize the necessary signatures.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Amendments to Chapter 544 related to illegal dumping.
Sharon Dickgraff, City Law Department. I'm here today to talk about ordinance changes regarding illegal dumping. As background, an illegal dumping work group was formed and has been working for about the last 18 months to look at ideas on how to improve enforcement of illegal dumping and hopefully help the city with some cost recovery as we clean up these dump sites. Since 2018, almost 11,000 dump sites have been remediated by MABCD and their contractors at a cost of a little over $1.5 million. These violations present unique prosecution challenges. Nearly 50% of the criminal charges were dismissed due to evidentiary issues, and less than $4,000 in fines have been collected by municipal court. One of the requests was for illegal dumping data based on districts. We were not able to locate concrete numbers, but the map on the slide does show the concentration of dumping sites within the city. They are primarily focused into the downtown core area, some up north, and that shows essentially the breakdown of districts and where those illegal dumping activities occur. The task force came up with a number of recommendations. First was to enhance ordinance penalties for illegal dumping, allocate additional resources for a dedicated MABCD inspector, and continue to look at grant funding opportunities for enforcement efforts. Additionally, it was recommended that evidence collection be enhanced by additional surveillance cameras, working with the police department's technologies for flock cameras and closed captioning TV cameras, and assisting with community efforts and reporting of these violations. The final recommendation is a 6-month pilot program to use existing MABCD staffing resources to help build better cases and hopefully catch these offenders. Additionally, we would continue to leverage WPD technologies and install and monitor existing camera systems in separate locations where illegal dumping frequently occurs. We would base those on ClickFix reports, as well as the data that you saw from 2023. The proposed ordinances do a number of different things. They increase the fines to a minimum of $500 for convicted offenders. It also has a structured tier penalty with fines escalating as it goes up. It allows the courts to impose restitution requirements on offenders to help pay for or offset cleanup costs. This is a new charge, and it was one that would hold the offenders liable. If my vehicle or trailer is used for illegal dumping, I could be responsible for the illegal dumping charges and restitution in the same manner as if I was the person that actually did the dumping. A classification of major violations is created, which has enhanced penalties based on the number of large items that you dump. Those tend to be costly for the city to get rid of. So if I have dumped 2 sofas and 3 refrigerators, I now have 5 separate violations. Municipal court may continue to order community service for offenders if they cannot pay otherwise, and it would allow the court to assess the cleanup costs as restitution. Spoke about this just briefly. The owner of the vehicle or trailer would be responsible for the illegal dumping. They would be or could be assessed the same fine, $500 for a first violation and $150 for a major violation. The goal of this is to have better cases. It's easier sometimes to get a description of a vehicle and perhaps a tag number than it was Sharon Dickgraff out dumping her mattress. You could see my vehicle with my car tag and then trace it back to me. We would ask that the ordinances be placed on first reading and authorize all necessary signatures. I have representatives from the entire internal working group here. So if there are specific questions for MABCD and WPD as far as what has been occurring and where we go from here, they can hopefully assist with answering those questions.
Thank you, Sharon, and the entire team that has been working for 18 months towards this solution. I really appreciate it. Councilmember Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, everybody else, Chris, everybody, Daniel, all of you who's been working on this. This is quite an issue in my district, as we saw by the heat map. I know we've had a couple of different pilots over the years. It's been touch and go. We've learned some things with some of these pilots. I think what you're talking about as far as the prosecution of the people who have the vehicles, own the vehicles, is a big one, because that's always been a barrier to successfully prosecuting. So I do appreciate all your work. A couple of quick questions. In here you talk about rummaging, people who rummage through it and kind of spread the mess even more. Can you just touch base on that for a little bit for us?
We are adding, or it's proposed to add an offense that if you rummage and leave through a mess, so if I go to Goodwill and they have some boxes sitting out, or they have a dumpster for Goodwill and I go in and I take things out and I spew them all about, the spewing about of those items would also violate this particular ordinance.
Okay, is there, like, how do we prosecute that? Like, what would define spewing about?
It would be the same process to prosecute any illegal dumping. We would need to see the person there. A lot of the Goodwill agencies I know of do have cameras, just because they're tired of getting illegal things dumped. So we would use the same type of mechanisms to try to enforce that violation as we would the other violations.
Okay, thank you for that. We talk about an additional MABCD inspector position. Is that a new one, or is that moving about from the current employment?
The current 6-month pilot is to utilize existing staff. The task force can't implement extra people. We can recommend that. The abbreviated final recommendation was to utilize current staff, have a 6-month pilot program that they would have more dedicated to illegal dumping, and then at the end of that 6-month, determine whether financially a new position would be warranted. And I'm going to look for Chris or Daniel if you want to add anything to that.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. Chris Labram, MABCD for the record, and thank you for that, sir. Thanks, Sharon, for the presentation as well. And so, yes, my vision of this, if you will, is, again, the change in the ordinances are a big game changer for us, and the ability to try to prosecute, get the information to Sharon and her prosecutors that they would need. We often get video, maybe we get pictures. We've had everything from individuals wearing a hat that said, I don't think that was me. They didn't even flat out deny it was. They just said, don't think it was, or the video's a little grainy, and therefore we are not allowed to prosecute. So being able to pull the vehicle in, and that gives us a lot more ability to tie that evidence together. So what I would foresee with this is if we can get some payback through fines, so cost recovery through fines, through the reimbursement of dump site cleanups, that will help. But mainly if we can start to deter illegal dumping, then we'll be back here next spring with part of our budget process, hopefully, to say that we can take a good portion of the $300,000 a year that we're spending right now to clean up sites and divert that towards resources such as an inspector, vehicle, equipment that we would need to continue to deter and prevent the illegal dumping. If we can be successful with the implementation and with this, that will be our long-range plan.
All right, I appreciate that, and thanks again, you, WPD, everybody who's been working on this. If you guys need any suggestions for any of the pilot sites, I have 1 or 5 or 6 that I could give you. So, but thank you again for all your guys' work on this.
Very welcome. Thank you.
Chris, follow-up question. What's the salary of a typical MABCD inspector position?
They're about 60,000, 60 to 70, depending on range. Top out around 75. So with benefits, and that's what I look at with benefits, salary, and a vehicle, I'm about $150,000. So about half of the current illegal dumping budget.
Thank you, Chris. Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Chris, Sharon, team. I guess my thought process, even to your point, Chris, is I kind of think the initial fine should be higher than 500, and happy to have that conversation, but just the ugly act of illegal dumping is an intentional act, and I just believe that $500 is a little low. I think it should be double that at 1,000, and maybe a language change in the ordinance instead of saying not less than 500, just saying it's $1,000 on the first conviction. Looking at the ramp up on, I think, page 8, not less than 1,000, I would say not less than 1,500, no more than 2,000, but I would ramp that up just because of what we've seen, just like Councilmember Hoheisel. I've had several neighborhood people send videos. Chris, you know that. I've sent them to you too. And people are just really frustrated, and I think $1,000 minimum is a really good deterrent, hopefully, to stop people from doing that. But I just wanted to add that in. I agree with ramping this up, adding tools to the tool belt. You all work really hard, and adding more tools to make sure we can address these issues, I think, is a good thing.
Thank you.
I am going to second what Councilmember Johnson has just said. I actually was looking at the violations for fireworks ordinances, and first-time violations will result in a $1,000 fine or 100 community service hours. So again, there's always that option for community service. However, the fine for fireworks is 1,000. Illegal dumping, if we just look at the numbers that were provided to us, $1.5 million was spent between now and 2018 to remediate these sites from illegal dumping. And the only fines we were able to get back to recover the $1.5 million was $4,000. So we need to send a stronger message that our city doesn't tolerate actions that hurt others, especially in neighborhoods. These illegal dumping sites then become a safety hazard for people in our community. And so I am for a stronger fine or a higher fine of $1,000 as well. Councilmember Glasscock.
Thank you, Mayor. I would support the strictest enforcement we could have on legal dumping as well in particular areas, and try to give you as many tools to be successful in prosecuting them. Regarding, this was my question last time to Sharon, but it's a question you could answer as well. In some ways, this is probably less about enforcement, but more of prosecution for individuals, correct? This would give us more tools to prosecute?
Correct. For successful prosecution, yes, sir.
So one thing I was looking on the analysis, item 1B said that this will strengthen, so this one might be more of a Sharon question, provide courts with the ability to impose restitution fees on offenders to cover cleanup cost. So I was trying to look through the actual language of the ordinance, and I probably just skipped past it, you know, when you read something like 4 times and I couldn't find it. But where does it specifically say the restitution side? I saw where it said the fine.
I'm sorry, on page 8J, the court may require, in addition to the fine and as a condition of probation, person convicted remove or pay the cost of removing any waste matter which the person dumped or caused to be dumped on public or private property.
I think I just want to make sure that that language was in there. And then regarding the background on the sheet that we were provided, less than 4,000 in fines have been collected by the municipal court. So previously up to this, we weren't doing restitution on top of fines. It was just the fine.
It was just the fine.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your work on this.
Thank you, Sharon, and thank you to the team.
And I might just add procedurally, if it is the will of the council to change those amounts as far as the minimum and maximum, that could be done as part of the motion, and then it would just be cleaned up, and you would be provided a cleaned up version on second reading. And if I was following Councilperson Johnson, that would be sections H on page 7. And then over on page 8 would be the same change for the minimum for a second offense to the maximum of $2,500 is generally what we have jurisdiction over in municipal court.
Councilmember Ballard.
Oops, sorry. Thank you, Mayor. I have a quick question for Bob. Sorry if I'm out of order, but I was just thinking, do you know offhand how much our budget is for the neighborhood cleanups? I'm just curious how much we spend on that, and then obviously there's just a situation with a lot of trash, and that's why it gets dumped. I'm just curious how much money we're spending. I know it's just off the cuff, but. Sorry, I'm just curious.
I don't know that I remember. I remember the transfer. I'm going to, I think it's around $100,000 if I remember correctly.
For the
but I don't
cleanups?
quote me on that.
Okay.
300,000.
Okay.
Only off by 200.
So it's those organized cleanups in addition to the $1 million that we're spending on the illegal dumping.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Sharon, one question I forgot to ask you that came in my email, and then a second one I thought of. This is probably the harder one. Some of the illegal dumping that's happened in District 1 over the years, inspectors have told me to stop doing this, but I would go look through the pile and see addresses that were not attached to where it was dumped. Would the individual's name that's found in that be prosecuted, or if we were able to identify who actually dumped it and it was a different person, would they be prosecuted?
That's in here. Page 6, D is in dog.
Did I miss that?
If there's evidence of 3 or more items in the waste matter, there can be a presumption, and it's a presumption. Because I think in a lot of the situations that you're talking about, right or wrong, I may have paid my nephew Billy to go take my trash to the dump, and instead he dumped it there and kept my $25. I mean, so we as prosecutors and the inspectors look at all the facts, but there's a presumption, and then it would be up to the individual who paid her nephew or whoever, or Bob's Trash Service or whatever, to come back and say, no, I in fact paid him to do this.
Okay. The question in my email is, what would be done for illegal dumping at a business? So this person works at a business and said that trash companies fine them for cleaning up illegal dumping when people go dump furniture, mattresses, tires, paint, and all that other stuff in front of their trash receptacles. Is that something they would just share that video with us to prosecute who did it?
Yes.
Okay. Would the judge be able to look at the fines that maybe this business receives and add that as a condition of, I guess, the result of court, or are they kind of on their own for that, and that's a civil matter that they would have to sue this individual?
Okay, let me make sure I got the facts right. So I own XY business, and maybe CD comes and tags me because I have junk out there. I then come back with a video that shows that ABC, my neighbor, dumped the junk there.
They're saying that the hauler would, so if Waste Connections is your hauler and somebody dumps there, Waste Connections cleans it up, but they fine them.
Yeah,
So is
I
that
have
the
to pay
civil
for an
matter?
extra mattress or oversized item or
Right.
whatever. I mean, I think you could ask the court as a matter of restitution. I mean, that was something that the property owner had to pay or expend to get those items removed. So I think that would be an appropriate ask if we have enough information to cross all the lines and dot all the Ts to get over to who did the dumping. And that's always been the problem in this case, is who dumped it.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Sharon, you mentioned an example a little bit earlier ago where you said, say for instance, 2 sofas, I'll make it 2 mattresses and 3 fridges. That's 5 violations.
Yep.
And just so that people kind of have an understanding of what those costs are, if they would have gone to Brooks Landfill, the mattresses, per mattress is $20 each, so that's $40. And then the 3 fridges, any items with Freon is $50 each, so $150. So nearly $200 in that they could have taken it to Brooks Landfill. Instead, they would get 5 violations. If we went with the $1,000 fine, how would that work?
On the big stuff, it's a bigger fine. On page 10, if you dump big items, it's $1,500 per violation. So if you're talking the 5 big things, if my math is right, the fine should be $7,500. So it's $1,500 per big thing.
So they could save themselves that fine.
$7,000.
They would go to Brooks Landfill and simply go and dump it there instead of illegally dumping in our community.
Plus any restitution costs.
So there's always a choice.
Yes.
In other words, there's a choice where you can do
Yes.
it appropriately.
Yes.
And there's a choice of just dumping it in our neighborhoods, which is illegal. So
Right.
I appreciate, again, I wanted to give context to those numbers so that people understand there is an opportunity to do it correctly, and then there's an opportunity to do it incorrectly. In addition, I had one more question. Councilmember Ballard asked about neighborhood cleanup costs. So per year, $300,000. So neighborhoods have an opportunity. If you cannot afford going to Brooks Landfill, you can go to these neighborhood cleanups. I know Councilmember Hoheisel, Ballard, and many others have them in their neighborhood. So there is an opportunity for free neighborhood cleanups. Is that correct?
There is. I do not know the frequency of those cleanups, and I think that's the issue is always, I'm getting ready to move, I have all this junk, what do? Do I leave it and then my landlord keeps my deposit? Do I leave it at the curb? Do I call my cousin Billy? If I can't wait for that cleanup, which would certainly be what we would want you to do, but just looking at what resources are out there rather than just leaving it at the curb and telling citizens it's somebody else's problem is really what we're trying to address.
So back to some personal responsibility.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Hoheisel. Oh, sorry, Councilmember Ballard.
Thank you, Mayor. So question for, I don't know if this is for my colleagues, but so by increasing the fine, which I agree with, my concern is if we only collected $4,000 in the past and we've spent $1 million for the cleanups, it sounds great, you know, in theory to up the consequence, but we're already not collecting a lot. And so I'm just curious how you guys feel about that. I believe that there needs to come a consequence for illegal dumping. Sometimes the only way to get their attention is, you know, to hit them in the pocket. But if we're already having a hard time collecting, I just am curious your thoughts on what that might look like.
Mayor, if I could, and I'd like Sharon to address this. If all we were doing was just increasing fines, I wouldn't disagree with you, but we're asking for significant changes in the ordinance in order to help us with prosecutions. And so I think we could see a substantial increase in revenue because now we have greater tools to be able to find someone guilty or to provide evidence to the court to try to get guilty.
If I may tag in, Manager, Captain Moses again for the record. That's the exact conversation we had as part of the work group. The work group kind of started around, you know, the lowest barrier change we can make is increase the fines. And we all said, that's great, but what does that mean? And so that's when we started looking at how can we also increase the fine and fill the gaps in the prosecution. Because what we found is some of these barriers, like not being able to hold the vehicle owner responsible, those were the types of things that really limited the ability of MABCD, law enforcement, and the prosecutor's office to successfully prosecute a case. So that's why we did both of these together. We had the conversation about increasing the fine amount. Candidly, we anticipated some of this conversation from the bench, but we wanted that to be a discussion that you all were able to have and not something that staff imposed. But we had some of those very similar conversations. But that's why this all kind of comes together in two different ways, like the manager said.
Councilmember Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I agree, and I support raising those fines 100%. Just a little background on the neighborhood cleanups. I believe we use CDBG funds for that, or some sort of federal funding, I believe, for it. No? Okay, Becca, could you come up here and just give a little background about
Brooke
that?
here.
But also, another barrier that we see with the neighborhood cleanups is that you essentially have to have a neighborhood association to run those cleanups. It might be worth a discussion moving forward about how to work our way around that a little better, because there's a number of areas all around the city that don't have neighborhood cleanups because they don't have an association going, which I think is one of the requirements there.
Yeah, we don't use CDBG funds. I don't have the full answer, so I don't run that program. Becca Johnson from the Office of Community Services, for the record. Believe it is part of Public Works budget for dumps, I think.
It's a transfer from our landfill fund.
Okay.
Yes, but we do have requirements about the neighborhoods that are allowed to have them that do, they have to be low to moderate income neighborhoods.
Okay, thank you.
Can you reiterate that, city manager? Since I mentioned Brooks landfill, obviously people are asked to come and dump there appropriately with a fee. And so because of these fees, then we're able to provide free neighborhood cleanup locations so that people who cannot afford paying the $20 for a mattress dump, that they can have it at a neighborhood location. Can you address that? That has always been, this has been part of our method of trying to help individuals who are either low to moderate income individuals.
It has, Mayor. The money is transferred from the landfill fund into the cleanup program. It's something that we're reviewing right now because we are projecting some difficulties in that fund going forward, and so our ability to be able to fund the neighborhood cleanup to the level that we have in the past may come in jeopardy a little bit because of that. But that's under study right now, and we're doing some long-range projections to make sure that the landfill fund stays healthy. The council also, if I remember correctly, modified the program a few years ago so that some neighborhoods could take advantage of it that aren't necessarily low or moderate income, to make sure that there are parts of the city where a group of neighbors could come together, or a homeowner association and sponsor a cleanup. But if I remember, it's just a handful, if I remember correctly, every year.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Just adding to the conversation, what Captain Moses said is why I think the increase in fines would be good. Adding those additional tools, I think, will result in better prosecutions. And I think a few people, and I continue to think about that red truck that was in that video, I think a few good examples of people being fined for all the waste that they are dumping would make an impact. And hopefully in the future, it's not happening as much, but I think initially having those additional tools will help out.
If I may, Mayor, thank you. Councilwoman Ballard has asked me if I could go ahead and break down the case totals that we've had. So if you look at that, those prosecution numbers, since 2018, we have cleaned up 10,944 total dump sites. Of those, we were able to charge 72. We were able to get 17 of those into court, and we were able to get 6 convictions of those. So, actually, sorry, I take that back. So we had 17 no contest and 6 guilties. So of those, we were able to get about half of those with a conviction, and that resulted in the $3,689.16 in fines that we were able to recover. So that's the complete breakdown of those numbers. And as the manager and others have said, we would certainly hope that we would see a gross increase in that, be able to recover a great deal more. Another thing I will add is to the topic of the dump sites and by council district. So we track every dump site. The decision was made several years ago that we should not be making management decisions based on council district and the location of those sites. It should be based on the urgency of the site and what was in it. So that's why we had not ever retained or tracked that data by council district. If that is valuable, especially with this new ordinance, we can certainly begin doing that. so that we have it going forward. Does that answer all of your questions, ma'am?
I have a follow-up question to that. So of those neighborhood cleanups, can I just understand the breadth of which districts? Is it the same 3 districts that there have been issues on the map? Oh, you have one? So can you just raise your hand if your district receives funds for neighborhood cleanups? So no Council District 5 or no Council District 2?
I believe there have been limited ones in 1 and 5. That's why the council changed the policy of several years ago, but they're very limited, and I don't have that information. It would be probably 1 or 2 a year at the most, if I remember correctly. And it's a first-come, first-served basis. I know the council opened it up, but I don't know that there have been many applications.
For clarification, you said 1 and 5. Did you mean 2 and 5?
I'm sorry, I meant 2 and 5.
Okay, thank you. I'm not aware of any, but that doesn't mean that it hasn't happened. But mine, usually it's an HOA that comes together to do a cleanup in my district.
Thank you. So there are opportunities. Again, I just want to make it clear that that's why I really lean on the council members. They are very good at sharing when there's a neighborhood cleanup, because that is your, quote, free opportunity to do it appropriately, but also not get charged what you would get charged at the landfill, but it is being subsidized. So that is, I think, what I just gleaned from that information. And knowing that the fund is unstable, can you address what are steps that we're taking to make it stable? So again, that there are opportunities for those that cannot pay, still have these free opportunities.
Mayor, primarily what we're doing is looking at our fee structure. We think we've been undercharging at the landfill and when we look at competition on the private side, and so we're trying to find the right spot, not to discourage dumping by the vendors that use us, but at the same time to get closer to cost recovery.
Thank you. Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. 2 things. Chris, I do think it's important to track that by district, just to have that data. 2, the neighborhood cleanup piece is a little more complicated than we are talking about. We don't publicly advertise when those are happening citywide because of illegal dumping. So if neighborhood A had a cleanup on Saturday, that neighborhood knows about it. The rest of the city does not, just because people will bring stuff over there. And it's incumbent upon, most of us work with those neighborhoods, but Councilmember CSR, the neighborhood president, their group to door knock and let people know when that is, get the flyers out. Hopefully they get their belongings to the curb, and that happens once a year. We really need to do that more, but we don't have the budget for that. And that's kind of where some of this comes from. That 1 time per year is great. People will get stuff out, but in 4 or 5 months, they may have something else that they need, and they don't have the funds to do that. And I think that's where some of this comes from. But again, those are not fully advertised citywide, and in cases, at least in District 1, where I've seen people put that on social media. One time we had a bus from West Wichita, not a bus, a boat from West Wichita show up at a neighborhood, and they tried to leave it there and speed off, but luckily the neighborhood president, myself, and the neighborhood officer were there to make sure that did not happen. But so most of the time that's just advertised within the neighborhood to try to stop that from happening.
Thank you, council members. Thank you, staff. I see no further questions right now. We will now open it up for public comment. I see none. I'll bring it back to the bench. Councilmember Heisel.
Thank you, Mayor. I think most of us up here are in agreement to raise the fine. So Sharon, I don't know if you need to help me through this, but you indicated earlier on page 5, I believe it is.
Page 7.
7, thank you. 7 and 8.
Yeah, 7 and 8. And then the
Section H.
H, as in Harry.
Yep. So, go ahead.
If you wanted to increase the fine, the motion would just be moved to approve the ordinance with the following changes. Increase the fine in section H to $1,000, not more than $2,500. Second violation, not less than $1,500, no more than $2,500, which I think was the gist of the conversation.
Okay, so I move that we approve the ordinance with the changes of, in section H, changing the language from a mandatory fine of not less than $500 to $1,000, and then also changing on page 8, not less than 1,000 or more than 2,000 to $2,000. 2,000, yeah, I believe $2,000.
Second.
And if I could interrupt for a moment, just to add the magic language, we'd like to have the motion to place the ordinance on first reading with those changes and authorize necessary signatures.
And place the ordinance on first reading and authorize the necessary signatures.
Thank you so much.
Jennifer.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Councilmember Hoheisel, would you take a friendly amendment on page 8 to say not less than 1,500, no more than 2,500?
Accepted.
Second.
Motion and a second. I see no further discussion. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Ordinances relating to noise nuisances and the operation of loud vehicles.
This is kind of the Sharon show today. Noise, trash, yeah, okay. Before you today are amendments relating to the city's noise ordinances. Currently, noise violations are contained in Title VII. When these were passed in 1991, enforcement of these ordinances was handled differently. The Health Department, Environmental Services Department, now that department is part of Public Works, were responsible for enforcement of these ordinances. When all of those restructuring activities occurred, those enforcement activities got shifted to the Police Department. The provisions or amendments do a couple of different things. They move the ordinances to Title V with other criminal ordinances that are enforced by the Police Department. They continue to allow MABCD and other departments to enforce them, but recognize that most noise violations occur after normal business hours, and your officers are going to be the ones that are going to get called to those kind of complaints. The methods to establish a noise violation are unchanged, and I know that was one of the questions that I received. There are two methods that prosecutors can use to prove a noise violation. First one is an actual decibel reading. The ordinance continues to have decibel levels set by the use or zoning of the area. The second method is testimony that the noise interferes with a person of reasonable sensibilities. That's a standard that has been upheld by the Kansas Court of Appeals and Supreme Court as an objective basis to establish a noise violation. The amendments also add some changes to Title 11 in reference to loud vehicles, which was requested primarily in the downtown area to address some of the loud vehicles. The same standard is being applied if it is noise that would interfere with the sensibilities of a reasonable person. A traffic infraction can be issued to that driver. Minimum fine is $500, maximum fine is $1,500. I was asked, well, how would we ever prove those? Officers are there when they do the speed outs on Douglas. They're going to know what was loud. They're going to know who was interfered with by that conduct. I would ask that the ordinance be placed on first reading and authorize all necessary signatures. Captain Moses is here if you have any enforcement type questions from the police department.
Thank you, Sharon. Councilmember Ballard.
Thank you, Mayor. Captain Moses, I have a question for you. Okay, so I hear about this a lot, in addition to the motorcycles, but that's for another day. How will this be enforced? I mean, I know you guys are extremely busy, but for example, will like the entertainment districts all be treated the same as like downtown, Old Town, Delano? There's a lot of dragging Douglas going on, and I'm just curious. I have gotten a couple messages basically about they're very excited, but are really looking forward to enforcement. So I'm just curious what that might look like.
It's a great question. So we have done special assignments in the downtown area around Nafsker Park, Old Town previously, and I anticipate that that will continue. That is a priority of the chief because he hears the same complaints you do. A lot of our enforcement related to this type of activity is complaint generated. So we rely on the community to tell us where these problems are occurring, and then we establish a plan to address them. We have to balance enforcement with the safety of the community. So it's important to make sure that expectation is metered. This is a $500 to $1,500 fine for noise, and it is a problem. But we also want to make sure that we're not recklessly chasing a motorcycle or a vehicle that's making loud noise through the downtown area on a Saturday night when it's packed, putting people at risk. So our special assignments, while I'm not going to get into all the tactics behind it, they take those types of things into consideration. That's why we've been leveraging technology at the department with your all support, which we're grateful for, and we'll continue to use that technology to enforce things like this. This, like many of the other things we've talked about today, simply gives us more tools to address those problems that people have. So enforcement will continue to look like what it has, probably, with increased special assignments focusing on these specific ordinances now that they've been kind of tweaked and that we can use them a little bit differently. Hopefully that answers your question.
Councilmember Glasscock.
Thank you. These questions will be for Sharon. Two quick ones. It's the same question I asked on the last one, that this is more for the prosecution, less enforcement.
Yes.
When we find violations. And then in addition to that, often there are some people that are unreasonable. And so how are we defining reasonableness of a person?
It's a legal standard. What would a person of reasonable sensibilities, and normally that's up to the court to determine. We do like to have in these cases corroborating testimony. The officer was there, the officer heard the music, he saw the pictures vibrating on the wall. We do not intend to regulate the type of music. I don't like that music, so I want them charged. Generally, we need at least one other person to testify or provide information that there was in fact a problem.
So it may not just be an individual going down the street and declaring things unreasonable. That's not the standard that we're using, or the legal standard.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mayor. Captain Moses, just one quick question. Do we have any ability to measure decibel levels with our patrol units?
We do have some decibel readers. They're mostly focused in Patrol South for Old Town. That's where we've used them most recently, related to complaints that we've received about specific locations in Old Town. But we do have some. They're not something that patrol officers generally carry around, but we do have some.
Okay, thank you.
Approximately how much is that tool, and is it beneficial to have more of those tools, one per patrol?
I don't know the exact cost of the tool, but Captain Cooley was a part of purchasing those previously, I believe, and I can go back and talk with him about expanding, having those in other areas of the city.
Thanks, Captain Moses. Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. I guess it's good I got rid of my Hemi. It's pretty loud.
I'm sure you drove very responsibly and would not have violated this ordinance.
Yeah, I did, yeah. Just one quick clarification. I know the answer to this. Well, I think I do. So officers have discretion when they are called out. So in the example like Sharon just mentioned, if the neighbors don't like Snoop Dogg or Ice Cube, and that's what's playing, officers can hear that and just ask them to turn it down because of that, not just fine them immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. Chief Sullivan has taken a very strong stance about education over enforcement when we can. So if it is something where we can reasonably communicate with the offender and say, hey, you may not have recognized this, but your neighbor is hearing your noise and it's too loud, please turn it down. That's what we're going to do first before we move to just citing somebody.
Okay, and in a situation where there's a responsible person with a Hemi in their truck who may work out early in the morning, and when they turn their truck on, it rattles everybody's windows, are they going to get a potential fine for that, just going to work out?
I would say we would utilize the same education model where we would maybe communicate with that person and say, you may not recognize this, but it is causing issues for your neighbor. We all have a responsibility to be good neighbors, and sometimes we just need to hear from a third party, an independent third party, about how your behavior might be affecting your neighbors.
Cool. Well, anybody with a Hemi, make sure you don't add that extra tailpipe attachment.
I see no further questions for staff. We'll open it up for public comment. I see none. We'll bring it back to the bench. I know I've had the opportunity to go to breakfasts at Councilmember Ballard's District 6, and I've also heard it in College Hill in District 1 that this is an issue. And so I will glean on these two council members to move this item.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. Would like to take the recommended action, adopt the proposed ordinance, and authorize the necessary signatures.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Ordinance authorizing use of Hyatt proceeds.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. Becca Johnson from the Office of Community Services for the record. On September 5th, 2017, the City Council adopted Ordinance number 5585, which authorized use of Hyatt Regency Wichita sale proceeds to fund projects in Council Districts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Subsequent ordinances authorized additional projects and allocations. As part of those subsequent ordinances, on December 18th, 2018, the City Council approved a $200,000 loan to Starlight LLC, the operator of Starlight Drive-In, for the acquisition of 2 digital projectors and other related equipment and installation costs. The loan was amortized over 5 years with interest only 1% for the first 4 years and then monthly repayment in year 5. The funds were appropriated out of the funds allocated to District 3 from the sale of the city-owned Hyatt Regency Hotel in Wichita. And on December 27, 2022, Blake Smith, the operator of Starlight, requested and received an extension of the loan agreement for 2 years due to the financial hardship of COVID and a slow industry recovery. On February 4th, 2025, the City Council approved an amendment to the promissory note to restructure Starlight's loan at Mr. Smith's request. Mr. Smith has made a $50,000 payment following the restructuring and agreed to repayment of the balance of $150,000 beginning July 1st, 2025, with equal monthly installments of $2,147.33, which includes the amortization at 1% through June of 2031. One payment was made in August 2025, reducing the outstanding balance to $147,977.67, which means thus far $64,147.40 in proceeds, including $52,022.33 in principal and $12,125.07 in interest have been recorded as program income to the District 3 Hyatt project and are available to be reallocated. The proposed ordinance allocates $52,000 to 3 District 3 projects, and the proposed ordinance additionally allows for future requests to change the repayment timeline of the Starlight loan with City Council approval. For the projects proposed to get funding, the first is a contribution of $25,000 to the Wichita Animal Action League. These funds will be used for spay and neuter clinics in the District 3 low to moderate income neighborhoods. The second project is a contribution of $20,000 to Legacy Works ICT. Those funds will be used for its continued youth employment and development programming within District 3. The third project is a contribution of $7,000 that would be added to the beautification grant program for District 3. $8,731.72 was previously allocated to this project in 2023. Grants from this program will be available for one-time beautification projects located in District 3 to include murals, trees, signage, or other beautification efforts. It is recommended that the City Council place the ordinance on first reading and authorize the necessary signatures. And I stand for any questions.
Any questions for Becca from the bench? I'm seeing none. Is there anyone who'd like to speak on this from the audience? Seeing none, bring it back to the bench. Would Councilman Hoheisel, would you like to?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Vice Mayor. First, I just want to give the flowers to everybody who's currently doing work in our district. Wall is actually in Plainview right now and starting to get into Hilltop with spay and neuter clinics. I know we all hear the heartbreaking stories of what's going on at the animal shelter, and this is a countrywide issue right now. A lot of it stems from the fallout from COVID. This is a good step as far as getting ahead of this problem so we don't have these issues further down the road. So they are doing great work. While they not only deal with a lot of the strays that people have, but also education with people, hooking them up with resources, letting them know, here's where you can get your heartworm medicine, here's how to better take care of your pets. They also participate in neighborhood cleanups. As a matter of fact, just this last weekend in Hilltop, Wall was out there, and they were also out in Plainview helping with that as well. So they're doing so much more than just helping with this, but it's great to be able to help them a little bit, help us in return. Also, Legacy Works, they've been doing great work, working with kids who are in the foster care system, working with some at-risk kids as well. I fully encourage people to go and try their coffee. I'm not sure if they're still at the downtown library, but they've been out at the downtown library, so stop by there and grab some of their coffee. They also do pottery to help teach kids how to garden and sell that produce actually to help go back into the program. It's another great program that we have down in District 3, and I'm just so thankful that they're there doing the work. Also, we are looking at doing some murals in Linwood Park and Hilltop as well on the side of the community building. So that's what the extra $7,000 or so of this ordinance will be going to. We have one of South Wichita's well-known artists, Bill Stouffer, helping with that as well. So this is all a lot of great momentum that we have that we want to further support in the district. And also the drive-in had a significant amount of damage that was done here recently. So this is just to help them kind of get the fence repairs done, get some of the down limbs hauled out of there as well. So, and just also of note, they will be having scary movie festivals here into September and October, and those are always a blast to deal with as well. So I just want to make sure that we give as much help to the drive-in as we can because it's a South Side institution. And with that, I almost forgot at the end of that whole ramble. I recommend that the City Council place the ordinance on first reading and authorize the necessary signatures.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Funding for 2025 park signage.
Hello, Mayor, City Council. Tim Kellums, Public Works and Utilities, here to present on 2025 park signage. So a little bit of background, the adopted 2026-2035 CIP includes funding for park signage. It is located in the ongoing section for this year for 2025 that we're wanting to initiate. As you can see here, is just a photo of the old wood signs. I'm sure most of you are all familiar with those as you drive around town. We have new branding materials As you can see, it's kind of all throughout the community, and so now it's kind of the steps to start implementing that into the parks. It helps with wayfinding and also helps with a stronger sense of place. Just kind of helps remind people on who's responsible for the parks, making sure that they understand that we have these amenities throughout the park system, and also provides a bit of continuity throughout the system. So a little bit of analysis. The new park signage will be provided. We're focusing mostly on the pools. We focused heavily on the rec centers and community facilities. You should start to see some of those from the 2024 CIP come up in the next probably about 30 days, probably early October is when you'll start to see those go in. So this is good timing for us to kind of go through the next round of funding to start implementing new signage. We're really focusing on the main heavily used amenities, so the pools, facilities, rec centers, those sorts of things. And eventually we'll start to kind of filter down into the large regional parks, community parks, and then eventually we'll get down to the neighborhood parks down the road. So our goal is to do the pools, and if we have good bids on it, we'll continue to do additional signage. So Harrison Park would be one of them, Country Acres, Canine Rooster, Dog Park, Clapp, Chapin, and then the Kansas Fallen Fighters Memorial Park. That's one that we're looking into. So those are potential locations. Again, if we get good bids, we'll continue to work through our long list. We have over, I think, 140 parks, so that means that there's likely over 140 signs, and many parks have multiple signs, so it'll take us a little while to get through all of them, but kind of here for the long run to get through and help continue to improve our parks and make sure we aid with wayfinding. So for the financial considerations, there's $100,000 in the ongoing section in the adopted 2026-2035 CIP. For park signage, and again, this is for 2025 money, so we'll be coming back again for 2026 park signage here in the near future. So staff recommends initiating the whole amount, the whole $100,000 at this time. It is recommended that City Council initiate the project, adopt the resolution, and authorize the necessary signatures. And I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Questions for staff? I have several. Can you go to 73 again? So I wanted to know, this compared to the current wood signs, how much is this obstructing, I guess, traffic? Because I can see that the old sign you could still see through, and it would be helpful for people who are making left turns. Can you talk about that?
Sure, yeah. So all the signs have to go through a sign permit. So that's done through MABCD. So they look through that, make sure that it is appropriate for the sign, the right size, and is in a good location. Many of our signs, most of the projects that we've been doing now are the big facilities. So they have like Evergreen Rec Center, they get these big tall ones because they're pretty important, and most people are trying to go to those. As we get to these smaller locations, we'll be going with a smaller 4x3 sign. So it'll be smaller. It'll be basically pretty much the same size as this one. Not as bulky as this one, still very legible, but it will be roughly about the same size. We don't have any of those currently installed, so I don't have a photo for you. But you should start to see those. We do have a couple of those in the 2024 park signage project, so you'll start to see those around, so we'll have a better idea.
Thank you. That helps with comparison, because again,
Sure.
we're not comparing apples to apples right now.
Yeah.
There is no such sign example just yet.
Correct.
With these old signs, the wooden signs, do you know how much those used to cost versus these new signs, which cost $25,000 each?
So $25,000 is not the number. It depends on the bids and the size. We're seeing that those are coming in around, I think the latest one was probably around $4,000 to maybe $10,000. Depends on the size. The taller ones are more costly, and the smaller ones are a little less. You're just using less material. The In terms of cost, I'm not sure. These metal or these wood ones were mostly done in-house, so they were using staff time to repair these, create these. A lot of the issues that we were having with the wood signs are that when they are vandalized, you can't just take a graffiti remover to them and clean them off. You have to then go and replace them. If they get cut, you have to replace them. So it's using staff time to go through and maintain these. Whereas it's a lot easier to just remove a panel, get a new panel made for these wood or for the metal signs, and you could just take the graffiti remover to them a lot quicker. So in terms of maintenance, we imagine that we'll be seeing less staff time going towards the maintenance of these signs because it does take quite a bit of. You can see kind of in the bottom of this one, they do get with heavy wind. They are wood. They are susceptible to cracking and breaking. There are, with weed eaters and mowers, they do damage the signs as well. We are putting concrete footings around all of the new signs, so that makes it easier for our mowers and the maintenance team. So our vision is that these new signs will be getting or have less wear and tear on them, and they'll have a much longer lifespan compared to these wood ones, which do routinely have to get replaced over time. They just aren't as structurally sound.
I have several questions, but Councilmember Johnson has some.
Thanks, Mayor. I was just going to say I appreciate the presentation. I really like these when it was installed. I think the first one was at Lynette Woodard. People loved seeing that and really kind of gave a refresh. Not to overstep into another district, but I just wonder on the Kansas Firefighter Memorial, when you all get there, would there be entertainment of adding red to it just for firefighters instead of the consistent blue and water stuff?
Yeah, I think we're still kind of exploring funding exactly how that one. I know we do have a mock-up for that, and I'm planning to move forward with that sign, but I don't know the full details exactly on funding just yet. I know there's a couple of moving pieces on that one and what the final design will look like, but I do believe there will be red on that one.
Awesome.
Councilmember Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a little background. I do believe red and black is the color outline for that particular one. I think maybe the wording, whether it's black or white wording, is kind of where we're at. Also, it appears that that sign will be donated. So we would not have to have that in our the CIP going forward. We're still in discussions with that. So a lot of good momentum there. Thank you.
Several more questions. So back to the cost. So we're about to approve $100,000 for 2025 park signage, but you're telling me that each sign is roughly $4,000. So what's the remainder?
So once we get into the pools, we are looking at the different sign types and evaluating the exact size that is appropriate for these. If funding allows, we will continue to go and work on Harrison Park and those numbers listed to potential additional signage. The numbers that we received for park signage has varied. So what we've done in the past when we've bid this out is we've put out multiple park signs and we bid them in different groups. So if they are accepted, we can accept pretty much all the groups that we can fit into our funding amount. So we will do our best to get all of these in. I didn't want to say that we're going to be doing all of these signs when we don't know when the bids come in yet, because we bid them on an individual basis to each contractor. So it allows us to get our bang for our buck because we're doing as many signs as we possibly can. But knowing that the funding kind of changes around, especially given that they're all metal, that changes a little bit. We know that we'll be able to do all of the pool signs, and hopefully we'll be able to do those additional signs, but I don't know if we're going to be able to get to all of them.
Okay, so technically, because the way that this green sheet reads, it makes it sound like $100,000 is for 4 pool signs. However, if there are remaining dollars within the $100,000, you'll be able to also help out with possibly up to 6, but I just heard that the 6th one actually is going to be donated, so really 5. So my question really goes back to, it's $100,000 for up to, is it 9 parks, 9 locations? Is that? accurate?
Yes, I mean, if we get great bids, we can always go back out and put out more and try to, do more. Right now, when we've done bids, we've seen pricing kind of all over the place. Luckily, we had a vendor out of New Jersey, of all places, bid on a project and was a low bid for the 2024 signs. Now, I don't know if they're going to bid on the next one, and prices may change, and we don't know who exactly is going to bid on the projects. But I think 9 is probably our target. But again, with funding kind of bouncing around and not knowing who's bidding on the project, it does kind of open us up to not knowing exactly how much we're able to get done.
So again, just so that community understands,
Yep.
we're about to approve $100,000 for up to 9 signs.
Sure.
So that it doesn't, because the way the green sheet again looks like, it shows $100,000 for 4 specific pool signs. So it does come down to $25,000 each. So it's very inaccurate. So I think, again, I would encourage staff to share this portion within the green sheet. So again, when community understands $100,000 is not being divided up by 4 signs, but rather up to 9 signs, it makes it more reasonable of how much a sign actually costs.
Sure.
Just,
Sure.
again, for community and transparency's sake. The other question I had was about QR codes. Since these are panels versus these wood signs, and that's, I think, one of the reasons that you guys are having consistent signage look is so that people understand that the city of Wichita maintains these. Has a QR code ever been considered?
No, I don't think so. We have kiosks that we have throughout our parks. Those are a little bit more appropriate for QR codes rather than, I think these signs are more for vehicular wayfinding. I mean, they do help with pedestrian and bicyclists, but didn't really want to encourage QR codes on more traffic signage. We do have QR codes throughout our parks on smaller kiosk signs, and we do use those. One great example of that is at L.W. Clapp Park at the playground. We have a panel that is used for the playground to help with individuals that are that have challenges in communication. So there's a communication panel board there that we do use QR codes for. So we do use them throughout the park, but probably won't be on this project.
You go back to slide 73, and you brought up something that is of concern to me and to this council, which is vandalism. Can you address, since moving to these new signs, have we had vandalism? If not, which is great, what has deterred that vandalism? Because it is a cost to community, and I think oftentimes we just talk about the vandalism and then move on from it and we clean it up, but it is a cost to not only staff time, but resources, and it also goes back to, I think, the 3 ordinances that we talked about earlier today about taking some personal responsibility and your actions have consequences. Can you talk about vandalism and what we have done to try to curb vandalism especially on signs?
Sure. Yeah, I think changing to materials that are more appropriate and used with the graffiti removal material. That's something that we've done on even signs and even other materials about not. There are certain coatings and materials that work well with graffiti removal. So on our projects, we'll look through, let's say it's a retaining wall. We'll make sure that the coating on the retaining wall doesn't allow for, let's say, spray paint to be absorbed into it and allows for easy graffiti removal. That's the same thing that we're doing here on these signs, is that it allows the graffiti removal chemicals to not eat into the material. I don't know if I don't have exact numbers on replacement or on maintenance. I do know that when I've talked with maintenance staff that routinely there's been, when I'd ask them, like, hey, what are you guys doing this week, or what's on your list, I routinely hear that replacing a sign at this park, replacing a sign at this park, and those are those wood signs. I have yet to hear that. I've never been told that we had to replace one of these metal signs. So I think that's great because that's allowing more staff time to maintain other things. And again, in terms of vandalism, in terms of graffiti, this is just a much easier thing to maintain. I think if you drive around businesses around town, a lot of them have these metal signs, and I think you'll probably see that many of them don't have vandalism, or they are easily or quickly removed simply because it's easier chemically to remove them.
Thank you again.
Yep.
Maybe this is a question for law. How have we prosecuted vandalism cases regarding sign vandalism or even just park vandalism?
I haven't heard directly of any cases recently. I can get that information for you. Of course, depending on the dollar cost damage, they might be charged as felonies and go to district court, so we could find out that as well. Parks may know if we've gone to court on any, I don't know if they have any memory, but yeah.
So part of the challenge that we've had as well is being able to identify who those individuals are. So with the changes to the ordinance, to be able to tie it back to vehicles or either to trailers if they're there on site makes it more enforceable for us. But we do track all of the graffiti that we report. It's on the same dashboard that has the homeless encampment along with any illegal dumping. It shows each location, what the staff hours and what the cost is that's associated with it, that's forward-facing for the community to view. And you'll notice that on the signage here, we try to put them in common places where it's visible for the community, as well as putting lighting there in the area so it's not a dark area. People can go and do it and not be noticed. Yes. So part of what we're doing as well, we're starting to look at installing cameras at some of those locations as well so that we can have them covered that's there. And we work with WPD and do the SEPTED to make sure that we can capture all of those areas so that it's visible for them to be able to look at when they have the real-time information system as well. And one of the locations that we've had some challenges with is one of our community facilities that we have worked in getting cameras to cover that area where we've seen a lot of that over at Kiwanis. So that's another location that we're moving with, putting additional cameras as well.
Thank you, Reggie, and thank you to the park staff, because again, I wanted to make mention that anytime vandalism happens, it is being tracked on the dashboard, but it does take away time for staff to do other important work within the park system. And so I appreciate that you guys are looking at these types of signs that are easier to clean, but also and to maintain, so that the staff can work on things that are even more important within the park system. Thank you. I see no further questions. We'll open it up for public comment. I see none. I'll bring it back to the bench. And again, the 4 pools are in District 4, District 5, District 1, and District 6. Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to suggest City Hall needs one too. That one on Central is a little outdated.
With that, I will move that the City Council initiate the project, adopt the resolution, and authorize the necessary signatures.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Councilmember appointments and comments.
We'll start with appointments. Councilmember Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to nominate Cole Schneiders to the Affordable Housing Review Board.
Any other appointments? I see none. I move to approve that appointment.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 7-0. Council members, comments. Councilmember Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple things real quick. The Meade, Metal Art, Grandview neighborhood associations have been moved to Hope Church, same times as usual. I'd like to thank Pastor Beeson for his years of service and letting us use his church. He really is a true servant to the community, and I'm going to miss seeing him twice a month. Also, special thanks to Garrett Foster. He's a friend of mine, and he is now the chair of the bicycle board, so he's a good dude as well, so congrats, Garrett.
Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you. I just have a few things. One was an update. Last week on my travel request, we had delayed it until this week, but I requested through the city clerk and the manager that it be next week. We're still trying to make my travel arrangements through them, so it's a little bit more complicated than we thought. So I don't have the exact cost quite yet, but it'll be next week. I also wanted to mention again that September 2025 is National Library Card Sign-Up Month. We had some great chat about Rockwell and how great the opening was for that branch yesterday. Thank you again to Councilmember Johnson for sharing Rockwell with me. Always appreciate it. But if you haven't got your library card or you want to get an updated library card, please make sure that you do that. And then finally, I just wanted to give a shout out. I mentioned it at Agenda Review on Friday. The Protecting Wichita Firefighters Initiative received the Kansas Hospital Association Visionary Award on Friday and was honored to be a part of the team with Chief Snow, with our Wichita Fire Department President Bush, with the IFF 135, and then also with our friends at Ascension Via Christi. And this Thursday at the Wichita Business Journal Award Ceremony, we will be receiving a Healthcare Hero Award. So again, we'll be there with Chief Snow, President Bush, and our friends from Ascension Via Christi who have been instrumental in making this initiative happen. So lots of kudos and recognition, and our goal is just that the firefighters in our community know that we care about them and we're trying to protect them like they protect us. So thank you.
Any other council members? I will just say thank you to Public Works Director Gary Jansen. He held two meetings, one for wholesale customers, and yesterday he held a town hall with anyone interested regarding the water schedule that will begin on September 15th. And so again, thank you to Gary for hosting those two meetings at the request of this council during that vote. So again, I appreciate his time and his team's time. With that, we cannot leave yet. I have to move an item. I move that the City Council recess into executive session for 15 minutes to receive information on 3 actions pursuant to KSA 75-4319B2 for legal consultation with the city attorney, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship, pending litigation, and legal advice. The executive session is required to protect attorney-client privilege and the public interest. The executive session will begin at 11:10 and end at 11:25.
Second.
Excuse me, Mayor, I am so sorry. There is an error on the document provided to you. You read it correctly, but instead of 3 actions, it should be receive information on an action. So there's just one. If that could be just reflected in your motion.
On an action, okay, so the executive session will begin at 11:10 a.m. and end at 11:25 regarding one action. The meeting will resume in the council chambers.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 7-0. We'll begin at 11:10. Thank you.